You can access the entire episode now on our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, Rokfin, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. At the highest levels, they probably have a great knowledge of this technology that you're speaking about, but it's only been utilized not for humanity's benefit, but for the benefit of those in power and for them to keep power over us. So that's where we're seeing already the negative effects that have probably been applied for decades or longer.
I would agree. I'm going to take the audience back to, remember the Philadelphia experiment?
Yes.
Apparently, Tesla was involved, or at least Tesla Technology was involved with the Philadelphia experiment. Now, let me explain. Apparently, a very large, or two Tesla coils were placed on this naval ship. It's called the Eldridge. And the U.S. Navy was performing a scalar energy test in which they wanted to subject this naval ship and the sailors on the ship to a powerful scalar energy force field. Well, the experiment apparently worked, but then again, it also failed. So during this scalar energy experiment, the experiment started with a green halo forming around the ship, the Philadelphia experiment. This took place in a shipyard in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's why they call it the Philadelphia experiment. And subjected under scalar energy, the ship assumed this green corona, this green halo, and eventually the ship, the destroyer, disappeared and went to Roanoke, Virginia in a flash, in an instant. So this was teleportation of this naval vessel from Philadelphia back to Roanoke, if you will, Virginia. And in so doing, while this was taking place, some of the sailors on the ship mentioned that they could walk through the hull of the ship because the sailors were under the influence of scalar energy. And in so doing, they could, if you will, become non-physical.
It changes their molecular structure, you would say?
Yeah, it changes their molecular structure. And for some reason, yes, thank you. For some reason, those sailors said that they could walk through the whole of the ship. And the ship apparently went back to Norfolk, Virginia, by way of some type of scalar energy tunnel or vortex. So imagine being teleported from Philadelphia down to Norfolk, Virginia in a flash, in an instant. During that process, the sailors were able to walk through the whole of the ship. Why? It's all under a scalar energy environment in which both the ship and the sailors were now assumed into that force field. They were non-physical, and as such, everybody had a non-physical, more or less like an angelic type of body. Was there truth to that? Was there credence to that story? I think there was. And I can describe some of those events by way of a force field, a plasma field, or a scalar energy force field, starting with the green halo, then the teleportation from Philadelphia down to Virginia, and then subsequently we see the sailors were embedded, they were left embedded, or
they were fused to the ship, right?
They were fused into the ship. Now, how did that happen? Well, during the experiment, they could pass through the ship. Mm-hmm. But once the ship found its way to Norfolk, Virginia, and the experiment ended, those sailors that were trying to pass through the ship, they were fused into the ship. They were incorporated into the ship. They interpenetrated and stopped and were fused into the ship. Now, that can only be described by way of scalar. That's scalar. That's not an electron. It's just, every time I hear that story and I hear of all the particulars, and I say to myself, that was a scalar energy force field, and it's been covered up.
I had a wonderful guest the other day Muhammad Abraham. He's an Egyptologist, and we were discussing ancient technologies and the possibilities of how we would utilize some of these extremely advanced ancient technologies that were available to us, including possibly access to portals or some sort of wormholes, the ability for us to traverse the globe through this form of unseen energy. Is this something you think that could ever be possible again in the future, having access to stargates or portals?
Yes, they are portals. And what am I getting at? This instrument is a portal, although it's not a very strong portal. You see, when somebody sends me their photograph, once again, they enter into this portal. And that's why I can find them and work with them and treat them, not physically, but through the portal in which their photograph is in the portal, not the person. So this instrument, if you will, is time travel. This instrument allows me to time travel. I can work with a person's photograph. That's this form of time travel. Is this possible? Yes, I do it every day in my laboratory. Do I want to increase the energy of these instruments? Yes. Do I see anti-gravity instruments in the future? Yes. Do I think that once we have this scalar energy force field around us, so we could pass through a brick wall? Yes. The sailors on that day, working through the paradigm, the plasma field, during the Philadelphia experiment, those sailors passed through the Eldridge. They could actually walk through the steel hull of the ship. We could reenact that experiment today.
So it's possible that structures like the Great Pyramid of Giza may have been powered by scalar energy and connect with other megaliths that acted sort of like an energetic circuit board of sorts.
Yeah, you're right. Again, let me go back to my instrument. My instrument is a miniature star, or some people might say it acts like a pyramid. There's no moving parts. You don't worry about the kinetic energy. The kinetic energy is afforded by the sun and the stars. Sunlight and starlight is the kinetic energy. This simply captures. This is my miniature star or my miniature pyramid. I simply capture and harness that energy. So we have to get away from this paradigm of we have to create the energy. We need a motor. We need certain type of combustion. You don't. The energy is everywhere. It's sunlight and starlight. And once the world realizes that scalar energy is free energy and we don't need a power plant, then that's going to liberate mankind.
It's possible that there are most likely intelligences and entities that maybe exist beyond the spectrum of our vision. Maybe they exist in our realm, we just can't perceive them, but they have knowledge and ability of how to utilize this energy that surrounds us all time, possibly without the use of technological machinery of sorts.
I agree. Now, if we can do that with a ship and teleport a ship, then we can teleport people anywhere in the solar system we want. This is the future of space travel. And it's also a way to download information. I consider that in the future, we're going to learn by energy instruments. We're not going to have to read. You won't have to sit in a classroom. That's the hard way, deduction, of experimentation. Why not just download this light? Why not just have this a flatus of light? And it's a knowing. It's an infused knowledge. So the hard way to learn is to sit in a classroom or to experiment or to read or to research. I know, I do a lot of reading. That's the hard way. The easy way is just to have this download of light that enlightens you.
To me, the most similar concept that this sounds like is the Force in Star Wars. Being able to utilize this unseen force for many different, even magical modalities that it would seem like.
You're absolutely right. And this is what the ancients knew. Many civilizations consider this chi or prana, consciousness, life force, mana, om,